Okay, thank you so much for having me here in Bochum University. This is my first time to be here, and I'm presenting for the last place. I hope you are interested in the subject. As kindly introduced by Professor Park, I'm interested in environmental policies and especially in in corporate social responsibilities. But this time, what I would like to introduce is so to say, interpretation of China's new recent tentative of applying this grand GDP program, which is in the name of the National Ecological Accounting and Auditing Scheme. The presentation is going to be presented according to this outline, and I would just kick off with a brief introduction of the methodology. So actually, this is a paper written using the critical discourse analysis. In general, this is a method that allows the broader social context to be illuminated gradually by the textual materials. Here we're talking about the policy documents and the official discourses using in the mainstream media outlets, as well as the university academic publications. So here, as brought out by Ulrike just now, I think right now it is undebatable that China's economic growth has been so impressive in the sense of its rapidity. It is to a great extent thanks to the massive and efficient exploitation of its resources, not only in terms of human resources, or in another term, the low price and large-scale labors that China as a country has as a large reservoir of the labors, but also in terms of natural resources, in the sense that in one way we have consumed a lot of natural resources, and in the other we have made a lot of damages to our natural environment, as it is shown in this pictures made by the data that we have in the year of 2012. As we can see, for example, the air pollution is aggravated significantly since the opening up of China's economy. So it is the case of the water pollution, where the renewable water resources has reduced significantly, partially due to the aggravated water pollutions. And this constitutes the context when in 2013 that the Chinese Communist Party, the Central Committee of the Chinese Communist Party has issued an important document called the Decision on Major Issues Concerning Comprehensively Deepening Reforms, that a national ecological accounting and auditing system is going to be established in order to fight against this kind of environmental degradation. So in order to have a more comprehensive understanding of this scheme, I went through the official document of the decision as noted in the footnotes. I go through the whole documents as well as Xi Jinping's explanation in regard with these documents. As we can see, I won't go to details about this text. As we can see in the underlined sentences, a lot of accounting terms are brought out just in these documents, as well as in Xi Jinping's explanation. which shows that actually the Central Committee is looking forward to establish a kind of technical framework so that we can manage our natural resources more effectively. And by going through these documents, we soon notice there are two categories that are underlined by these documents. The first one mainly regarding the management of physical resources, as we try to use accounting facilities to register the physical resource, the physical reserves of these natural resources, and make accordingly the management of these resources. And the second, it refers to this assignment of responsibility. Well, according to these, well, actually, the second point is not much raised up in these in the decision document itself, but it is underlined specifically by Xi Jinping's explanation of the decision. And according to him, the accountability is built on the basis of this procedure. So in the first place, we should have an inventory of the resources of a specific region, notably a province or a municipality. And then we link these, the consumption or the damage of natural resources to a specific project. This project is supposed to be approved or rejected by a certain government department, which head is HSCCP, I mean the party cadre, who's occupying the department head's position. So it is through this process that the responsibility is assigned to a specific cadre, party cadre. So when performing this kind of discourse analysis to the mainstream media outlets' texts, as well as to the materials published by the academia in China, we first noticed that for the mainstream media, there is focus on the issue of changing the current situation of using GDP as the only criteria to judge the development of a certain region, and hence to judge the economic performance of a party cadre. And the focus further goes on to the problems related to the government or the party cadre appraisal system. And in this framework, the dualism in the organizational structure has been repeatedly raised as the main obstacles of this assignment of environmental responsibility. They are generally, I mean, these discourses are generally kind of loyal reproduction and explanations of the ideas expressed in the CCP documents. But from here, we can already notice there is clear shifts of interest from the technical aspect to the assignment of responsibility, aka to the problematic structure of the CCP organizational structure. So the views of academics in China, as we look at the publications in regards to this NEAAS system, we notice that apparently for the academics, the contents regarding this ecological accounting and auditing scheme has been expanded. But this is natural because for the academics, this is their specialties to analyze in detail about these accounting and auditing framework from a more theoretical point of view. And what to be noted here is that the system of environmental and economic accounting 2012 has been unanimously named as the framework to adopt for China's NEAAS system. Apparently, there wasn't a lot of alternative views or critiques regarding this choice. It is just kind of taken for granted for us to take this framework as the framework to adopt. So, as a brief summary, we can see that by the official discourses, the NEAAS is represented as a revolutionary political change that represents China's highest central authority, that is the Central Committee, to highlight its resolution regarding the environmental problems. And it is seen as the incarnation of the latest research results, that is the SEA 2012, of the world's most renowned institutions, that is the UN and the World Bank. So basically, it is an incarnation of authority, the international authority, so to speak. So in order to understand more profoundly in the broader social context, I proposed to have historical view of the NEAAS. So as we can see, the idea of applying this green GDP product is not new. Actually, ever since the 1978, the opening up policy was put forward by the government. Actually, we already have this slogan, like we don't follow the pollution first, treatment later development course of the West. It has already been put forward as early as 1978. But actually, the real actions has been really limited due to the fact that under so many years of underdevelopment, we would prefer, not only by the state, but also by the Chinese people as well, we would prefer to pursue this kind of economic development instead of having any concern of this environmental pollution issue. So it is not until the succession of the fourth generation of leadership in 2002 that a green GDP index project is actually put forward in order to pursue this kind of environmental accounting structure at the national level. This is the first time that we officially put forward a policy that is targeting at this environmental problem. But actually, right after the issuing of the first report, the first green GDP report in 2007, the project is soon just pulled off by the authority, partially due to the fact that the results is way beyond the expectation of the authority, and perhaps beyond the expectation of the Chinese people and the international community as well. That is to say that after the recalculation of the green GDP indicators, basing on the green GDP indicators, the GDP growth rate falls to an unacceptable level. That is to say, near to zero for several provinces. This is analyzed by a lot of domestic and international academics as the principal reason that this project is finally put off by the authority. So meanwhile, as I presented earlier, the environmental degradation didn't stop, and till the beginning of the 2000s, it's become as we can see, to a level that is unacceptable, both by the authority and by the Chinese people. As we all know, the smog problems and so on. So the fifth generation of leadership, in the name in 2013, has just put forward this NEAAS program that is targeting, again, using these grand GDP indicators to treat or to fight against the environmental degradation. So as we can see, the Chinese government has a clear orientation to use these environmental accounting instruments to fight against environmental degradations at the national level. But there are some major obstacles facing by the authority. The first one is the GDP warship problem, and the second is the so-called elite dualism, both existing in the party cater appraisal system, which is targeted by the academics as well as the mainstream media as the main obstacle to applicate this kind of accounting and auditing. So after the brief review of this NEAAS and its history, we could know that the recent NEAAS is set up to address environmental issues by improving the CCP cater evaluation system. That is to say that by integrating environmental indicators into the assessment mechanism of the cater's performance, the central authority hopes that it will motivate the regional caters to avoid environmental damaging projects and to promote environmental friendly projects. In the meantime, facilitating the economic growth. So it is a, so to say, an ideal case that the central authority is hoping to put forward. That is to boosting the economy and at the same time preserving the environment, just by motivating the caters to do the right thing. However, as I analyzing the paper, I think there are some intrinsic problems revolving this scheme. The first one regarding to the problem to the rationale that we talked about in the NEAAS, that is to motivate the caters by motivating them to to score high, in the assessment of the cater appraisal system. But this obviously can lead to abuse. That is to say, some caters would probably approve these kind of environmental projects, but it is not appropriate for the specific region, just for the pure reason to score high in their appraisal system, in their appraisal results. The second problem is actually regarding to the broader social context. If this kind of environmental friendly project is actually put forward by the responsible regional caters, it would probably lead to a sort of social structural adjustment problem in this in the Chinese economy in general. That is, it probably would lead to a problem of disemployment, which is a much severe problem in the view of the Chinese government. So, and the third problem is regarding to the fully adoption of the SEA framework. As it is suggested by the United Nations and World Bank, the SEA framework is obligated to be in company with this SNA framework, which is the national account, the system of national accounts. That means these two frameworks should go together. But right now in China, we don't have this kind of well-established SNA framework yet, because it was in the same year, that is the 2007, the same year as the Grand GDP project has been pulled off by the central authority, the trial project of the SNA project has also been put off probably for the same reason. So right now it is kind of a dilemma for implementing the SEA without a well-established SNA system. So to summarize, we can see that the goal of the NEAAS goes beyond the protection of the environment, as this project targets as a fundamental political reform that the central authority intended to conduct. So this is pretty much what I would to introduce to you. I'm sorry if this lacks a little bit international perspective. It's pretty much focused on the Chinese context. Thank you.